All right. Hey, nice to see you. Good to see someone already in the chat there. So, should be a fun time that we're going to have today. We're going to go over a few different things. The starting plan is to go through some of the new Apple products that just got released. I'm sure you guys have probably seen some of my videos on them, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about them here. I can also I can answer questions that you guys may have on these products. Like if you think you want to get one for yourself, you can ask my opinion on them, all that kind of stuff. Uh, it should be a fun time there. I mean, honestly, uh, the iPad releases this week were kind of in my opinion. I mean, they're mostly just chip swaps. They didn't even change the wallpapers or anything like that. They didn't really add much difference there. But the Mac releases are honestly really interesting, especially if anyone out here is looking for a new Mac. These are really nice. And if nothing else, they push down the prices of the older models. All of these new products do, and that's always a plus. So yeah, we'll go into all of that a little bit. I also want to talk a little bit about the Nothing phones that just got released. So they're very budget friendly and they look really nice and really well made. But yeah, so I don't know if any of you guys are even looking for new phones or anything like that, but it just seemed like a very striking difference after we just had the iPhone 16e from Apple, and then we moved to we see a release from Nothing now, where it's like half the price almost, and probably a better phone in most ways than the latest iPhone that just got released. So yeah, that's definitely a thing there. Alrighty, well, we'll get into it, I guess. Obviously, I'm gonna state this for everyone here. The questions that you guys have are always, always welcome. I want you to ask them whenever you feel like it. Like if you ever have a question, interrupt me. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about something. Just ask a question, even if it's completely unrelated. If this is your first Graf-X Tech live stream you've been at, and you recently saw one of my videos, then you're like, hey, I have a question about this product, or I have a question on what your take was on this thing. Just ask at any point. If I don't answer it right away, that means I'll get to it towards the end. But I'm very willing to answer any questions you guys have that's related to this stuff. I love talking about tech and just anything like that. So yeah, any question you guys have, I'm game for. So all right, we will get into talking about these devices then. So going right to apple.com here to look at some of them and look at some of the details here. I did this a little bit in my iPad video about the new iPad Air and the regular base iPad. There was something with this iPad Air that I didn't mention right away, and I do want to make sure that I mention that. So with yes, this new Magic Keyboard that it has. It is not backlit, and that is actually a big problem there, in my opinion. So if you're going into the pre-order process, let's say you just pick the 11-inch, let's go blue, baseline, Wi-Fi, no, we're not going to have the Apple Pencil. But yes, this Magic Keyboard here does not have any kind of backlighting. Yeah, just has built-in trackpad, lets you scroll, click, and use multi-touch gestures. But yeah, it is kind of a dumbed-down version of the Magic Keyboard, which is a shame because in some ways now, in some ways, the in some ways the actual old school Magic Keyboard that used to come with the iPad Airs and everything like that, they are better in some ways with the backlighting and things like that. But now this one has a bigger trackpad and a function row, so it's just kind of a weird mix. I still think it would have been way better for them to just modify the iPad Air's design slightly so it fits in the M4 iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard, which would have made things so much simpler. Is Blackmagic Cam available on the new Nothing phones? I will look into that for you. That is not something I am sure about, but I mean they should have access to the Google Play Store. Just whether or not that works well on Nothing, I don't know. I haven't gotten one or anything like that. I'm not on Nothing's list of people who get sent a phone, so I did not get that. But I don't know. I'll look into seeing if I can test that out or at least find the answer for you. Do you think Apple would give 90 hertz of promotion on iPad Air M3 or M4? Well, I mean, obviously it's not on this M3 one, so yeah, the M3 is definitely not getting 90 or 120. They would be advertising like crazy if it was on this display. In fact, you can see when you look at the tech specs that it doesn't have any kind of promotion. But yeah, they might give the iPad Air like a 90 hertz or 120 eventually. I think a lot of the leaks timelines were closer to 2026, 2027. So I think it will happen because I think there will be a breaking point where 60 hertz is just completely unacceptable. I mean, I still think it's kind of unacceptable right now, but there will be a point where Apple will also decide, okay, we are genuinely losing sales on these tablets because we keep putting 60 hertz displays in, and then they will change it. Or they really don't have any other upgrade to give it, and the 120 hertz would be so cheap. So then, yeah, they would put it in. But yeah, it would become very similar to the Pro lineup. They would have to probably make something else more unique about the iPad Pro, which to me, they're kind of already doing that. Because they've now separated out a new Magic Keyboard for it that doesn't have the backlighting and things like that, they're almost already segregating the lineup even more so, because if you want the best Magic Keyboard, you have to now go for the Pro. And if you want the thinnest, you have to go for the Pro. If you want the best chip, you have to go for the Pro. If you want Face ID, you have to go for the Pro. And so those might be enough distinctions if ProMotion gets brought to the iPad Air, but I don't know. It's definitely an interesting thought, and I don't think it's going to happen. It's definitely not going to happen this year. They released their iPad Air models for the year. They're not going to release another one. But yeah, it could happen. Could happen in like 2026 or 2027. I think is definitely a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I would really like to see iPad Air be more compelling. I really like the idea of it. It's like, oh, it's, a more budget version of basically the iPad Pro. You get most of the Pro features, but just at a cheaper price. And it still does that. But yeah, I just think it has too many compromises when you can get a refurbished iPad Pro, even the as high as M2, for like the same price, basically, as this iPad. So, yeah, Apple definitely has done a lot of things that not everyone wants. They have an idea in their head, and they think they can market it well, and so they do it. Yeah. Yeah, and thin iPad. Yeah, no one really asked for a thinner iPad. I think they were thin enough. I said from the very beginning when those M4 iPad Pros came out that I would personally prefer thicker, or at least as thick as it used to be, and then you just add more battery life. I thought that would have been a way better sell. Um, I think that's honestly one of my biggest problems with the iPads in general right now, is just the fact that their battery life isn't that great when you start doing things like video editing or 3D modeling or anything powerful. You do not get 10 hours of battery life like they market that you get. Sometimes it lasts all day, but it doesn't always. Not if you're using like Final Cut Pro for multiple hours. It can kill your battery in 5 hours or less. So, yeah, but I'm spoiling my next video a little bit, so I should maybe not talk too much about what I think about this M4 iPad Pro too much. I'm releasing another video about it, but more as how I was using it as my only computer for about 8 months, and why I stopped, and what I'm doing now, and the pros and cons that I found when using that. So, yeah, changes in iPad OS would honestly make me much happier than any hardware iPad release. Like, none of this stuff that it's talking about is making me think, oh man, like, this just looks like such a great new iPad Air, you know? I just really got to upgrade to this thing. No, I mean, I got the M4 iPad Pro. This isn't tempting to me at all. But their marketing, they just talk about iPad OS and apps. Get up to something wonderful. Their apps kind of suck for anything professional. It's great for a lot of things, and the App Store has a wonderful support. I mean, now that I've had an Android phone for a little while, I can see how it's a little frustrating for Android users how much Apple's prioritized in a lot of things. Like, redesigned to an app, Apple gets it first on the App Store usually. So, yeah, it's crazy the difference there, but overall I really like the iPad Pro, and I'm excited to see what Apple keeps doing with the software with it, if they actually keep improving it. If they just leave it how it is, then it will always be limiting, and I don't think I could ever only use it as my computer. That's kind of the conclusion I make in that video, but when I release that, maybe today or tomorrow, please watch that too, because I spent way too much time on that video. So, I do not still have the M1 iPad Pro. I sold that after I made the video comparing it to the M4. I do still technically have a 2018 iPad Pro. It's the one that my wife uses, so I have access to it. I don't really own it, but yeah, so no, I don't have that one anymore, but I did edit a video or two on that one, and it worked. So it can definitely do stuff like that. M1 was still really, really powerful, and there's still some ways it's not practical or worth it. Honestly, I don't remember how much I sold it for. I tried to sell it pretty fast after getting the M4 iPad Pro, so it still had more of its value. I want to say it was still over 800 that I sold it for. Maybe even more than that. I got a pretty good amount for it. So, iPads keep their value really well. So that's definitely helpful for resale. And then there's the baseline iPad here with the A16 chip. And again, none of the marketing material has really changed here. It just really shocked me that Apple did not give it Apple Intelligence. That was a really big shock to me. Everyone was kind of saying, well, they'll probably at least give it the A17 Pro chip like the Mini, so it definitely gets Apple Intelligence. But nope, A16 chip for it. But big plus, they doubled the storage. I'm going to give them a lot of credit for that. I mean, there's no good reason they were selling it with 64 gigs before, but hey, that is really, really good that they upped it to 128. I think 128 is actually passable for most people using their iPads. I'm definitely a very heavy user, so I have like a terabyte on my iPad Pro, but I used to have a 256 gigabyte iPad Pro, and I never really even filled that up. So I have a 128 gigabyte iPad Mini, and it does just fine. So for most people, 128 I think is fine for iPad storage, especially if you have some kind of iCloud stuff as well. But yeah, this is really the unintelligent iPad. Yes, that is very true. And again, Touch ID, I mentioned this in my video talking about these. Touch ID is just not as good as Face ID. So uh, I'm always going to think that, especially the Touch ID on the power button. It's fine on the Mini. It's still not my favorite. I would still take Face ID on the iPad Mini for sure. But at least with the Mini, it's not that hard to reach around and grab it. Let's see if I have my Mini on me here. Yes, I do. So see, with the iPad Mini here, at least with the Touch ID on the top, it's just right here, and I can easily, I have to put my pin first. I can easily just, oh, here we go. Put my finger up top, and it works. So that's not too bad. It's when you're using it in a keyboard case as an iPad Air or something, and now every time you want to unlock it, you have to go reach up to the keyboard, top of the keyboard, and that's where you scan in your Touch ID. It is to a point where I hear a lot of people say if they use the iPad Air with a Magic Keyboard, that they just often put in their PIN every time because it's easier to type that in a keyboard than reaching up and touching the Touch ID. So, yeah, not a huge fan of that for the Air and the 10th gen, especially just because they're much bigger devices and it gets a little more awkward trying to find where the button is and scan your fingerprint. Not like it's not doable, and it is something you can live with. I actually had the iPad Air 4th gen for a while. It was one of my, I think it was the first iPad I owned that had the more modern redesign of this style that they're all in now. So I love the device, but when I got an iPad Pro instead, there was just no contest. The Pro was just much, much better. I believe I got the M1 Pro. It was my first iPad Pro that I bought with my own money, so I was very proud of that one. But yeah, Face ID is much better. Yeah, Apple does say use dongle. But yeah, and dongles can be okay for certain things for sure. And now that they're using USB-C, yes, USB-C definitely makes dongles more usable. But see, the problem is with USB-C on this iPad, it's just not powerful USB-C. And what I mean by that is, let's see if it talks about it here at all. I don't think it does. We can probably go to the tech specs then. So this iPad, so it has USB-C, but it's USB 2.0 speeds, not really even a full USB-C port. It's the style of that port, and it charges with USB-C. But yeah, USB 2.0, 480 megabits. That's not fast at all. That is very, very slow of a port. For example, I think the iPhone, when it used to have this, because this is the exact same speed as Lightning. So it got USB-C ports, but it's Lightning speed on the base iPad here. Same with the base iPhones. This is, yeah, it's just very, very slow. And you can't really, it looks like you can use DisplayPort through it, so you can at least connect an external monitor, but it does not support full external monitor support like the Pros do and the Airs. So yeah, it's a pretty lame USB-C port. And even the iPad Airs have a dumbed down port versus the iPad Pros. Let's go to a compare page here. This is exactly what I want to look at. Nice job. Okay. I guess Apple knows what to do. So, let's take a look. So yeah, again, iPad A16. It's like one of the only iPads and one of the only devices Apple sells now that doesn't have Apple Intelligence. It's interesting, but they now all have that landscape 12 megapixel stage camera with center stage, which that is awesome to see. And then this has the Face ID system in it. But see, this is the distinction. The iPad has USB 4 or Thunderbolt speeds. That is huge when connecting to docks and things like that. It is amazing because you can actually take advantage of a full Thunderbolt dock, have huge port expansions, and all that kind of stuff. I still think they definitely should have given the M4 iPad Thunderbolt 4. I don't believe it's a full Thunderbolt 4. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, they definitely should have given it Thunderbolt 4, as all the M4 Macs get Thunderbolt 4, so why not? Let's see here. It should say here. I love how it turns everything dark mode themed when you go to the Pro. It's kind of interesting. Apple's website design is good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I could never design a website quite like this, not at least with my current skill level. But yeah, so I have to admire that a little bit. So okay, it is Thunderbolt 3 officially. So that's not bad, but they definitely have the ability to go up to Thunderbolt 4 with the M4 chip. And again, it's one of those things where Apple limited it for the iPad and not for the Mac. Also, the Macs can have 2 full Thunderbolt 4 ports on the baseline M4 chip. So it would have been awesome if they could just add a second port on the iPad and have dual Thunderbolt 4 ports. The chip supports it. So, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it only outputs at 60 hertz. Yep, that is what it does. And only one external display up to 6K resolution at 60 hertz. It's not great. For example, let's look at this iPad, or not iPad. Wow, I'm getting my terms mixed up here. Let's look at the MacBook Air. So the MacBook Air is honestly amazing. That just came out. They lowered the price, which Apple doesn't lower prices, so that's crazy. So they lowered the price, made it just as good a battery life, a really fast chip. They put the M4 chip in it, so that makes sense. Okay, where is it talking about this? I know it talks about this somewhere here. Oh, they actually gave it the center stage camera, which is kind of awesome. So now all the iPads and all the MacBooks have that center stage camera. Even the iMac has that now. So just some more unified systems that Apple's using in all their devices, which just makes sense. All right, so this is the base M4 chip. Keep that in mind with the MacBooks here. They can't get the M4 Pro or anything like that. This is the MacBook Air. It only gets M4. So it has it can go up to 2 external displays, and this is not using that trick that the M3 MacBook Air used where you had to shut the MacBook first, as you can see in this picture. You can have the MacBook open and 2 external monitors. Why can the iPad not output that? It has the same chip. It's clearly just disabled either actually by the chip level, where they actually took off that feature on the chip, which would just be weird. Or what's more likely is they just turned it off in software. So, yeah, it's just because they don't want iPad OS to have to deal with 2 external monitors. It has a hard enough time dealing with 1, which is accurate. They need to really make that support even better and more seamless. So, yeah, that is the output of the iPad Pro there. It's quite a shame. I never quite caught that it was only 60 hertz. So, all right, let me make sure I'm caught up in the chat here. Can you make a video on Stage Manager iPad desk setup? Yes, I certainly can. I feel like I talk about it a lot in my videos, like some of my earlier iPad videos. But yeah, I probably never made a dedicated video to that. So yeah, I can definitely do that. I'll put that on the list of videos to do. $600 phone has one. Yeah, yeah, it's true. Yeah, the $600 phone has a USB-C 2.0 speed as well. So does the $800 phone and the $900 phone. Any iPhone that is not the iPhone Pros will come with USB 2.0. So that's super slow transfer speed. Yep, only the Pros get actually good transfer speed. And the iPad Air and Mini get better. I believe they get 10 gigabytes per second instead of 40. So it is better than the base USB 2.0, but it is still not as fast and still quite a downgrade for the iPad Airs there. And there's no good reason for it. The iPad Airs also have M series chips. They can support Thunderbolt. I mean, ever since the M1 iPad Pros have had Thunderbolt support. So clearly the chips can do it. They just disable it. And the iPad Mini makes a little bit more sense. It is just a regular A series chip that they put in it. So I can see that making a little bit more sense. But yeah. And the iPad Pro and 4 doesn't. Yeah. Any M4 Air videos any M4 MacBook Air video coming? I don't know if I'm going to make a full video talking about the M4 MacBook Air. If I get one, I will make more videos about it. I just don't know how I'm getting one. It's still quite an expense. They lowered the price, which is amazing, but $1,000 is still not throwaway money for me yet. But I would love to review it. So hey, if anyone wants to send me $1,000 to review it or send me one, hey, I do it. But I just don't know if I have the funds for that right now. But I'll definitely keep you guys posted. If I'm able to get one, I will definitely be making videos on it, and you'll see that here as well. But yeah, I could do the buy and return it thing. I feel a little crappy about doing that, because I mean it's really not the best way to do it. But yeah, it would be okay. I could definitely do that. So we'll see. I feel a little dishonest buying something with the intention of returning it. So I don't know if that's something I'll do, but you're right. That is something I can do. I know there's a lot of YouTubers that do that. But my mentality is I'm going to buy something with the intention of keeping it. And then if it does not perform how I want to, then I don't feel bad about returning it. But I want to buy it with the true intention of keeping it, not just to make a quick buck off of it or make a quick video about it. But we'll see. I just think it can be a little dishonest sometimes, at least feeling for me. Alright, let's take a look actually over here. Did anyone have any other questions on this MacBook Air? I think it looked awesome when I was going through these numbers here and everything. They also lowered the price of the 15-inch. This used to be $12.99. Now it's $11.99. So overall, they just made them cheaper every model. So I got no complaints about that. I'm always for Apple just giving a decent upgrade. So swapping the chip, allowing them to be full Thunderbolt 4 on both of them, 2 external monitors, and giving it a new color, kind of fun. And yeah, they just lowered the price. Like, when does Apple do that? So yeah, I am a fan. They still gotta talk about Apple Intelligence in these a little bit here, but yeah, I'm waiting for the day that MacBooks have Face ID, because again, Touch ID just not quite as convenient to reach up on the keyboard, hit Touch ID, but it's better than on the iPads, because on the iPads you're basically like reaching up on the side of the screen to trigger Touch ID, where this way you're at least already on a keyboard, like this. This is an external one, but they also had Touch ID on them, so you're just reaching up on a keyboard and you just tap the Touch ID. That's not too bad, but still, Face ID should just be on there as on these MacBooks as well. If you do that, then that means you're advertising. Yeah, you're not wrong. And yeah, yeah. I see your point. He would be advertising the product to justify the return of the product. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I mean, again, I'll definitely look into it. If I can justify that, I think I will. So, uh, yeah, I would love to get it in the review. I do also have an older like M2 MacBook Air, so I might see about doing like a trade in or something like that too, and I can look into all that kind of stuff. So we'll see what makes the most sense, but yeah, for most users, their M1 or M2 are enough. Yeah, I would agree. Uh, Personally, I wouldn't go as far back as M1. It's not like it's a bad machine. I just think it's getting a little dated now. Like anything that has the M1 chip is starting to feel a little dated in some things. And they had them start at like 8 GB of RAM back then, and a couple other stuff like that. So I personally would go with M2 or higher, but uh, and try to get at least 16 GB of RAM. And now all the MacBooks start with 16 GB of RAM, which is huge, and they should have done that years ago. But it makes all the base models way nicer. It just does. So now this base model M4 MacBook Air here is actually like very similarly spec'd to my iPad Pro, but I'm kind of curious. I would like to get it in hand and test out video editing exports, because if the 13-inch MacBook Air is a lot faster at exporting a video versus my iPad Pro, that would concern me like a little bit and show me more so that Apple is just limiting the chips in the iPads. So I want the Mac Studio M4. Yeah, Mac Studio is pretty great too. Here we can actually move to talk about the Mac Studio a little bit more. It's kind of weird, but it still looks really great. I mean, especially if you're going for M4 Max, not the Ultra. It is totally cool. So the M4 Max chip, we've seen this come out in the M4 MacBook Pros already, and it's a great chip. Up to 128 GB of unified memory, crazy memory bandwidth, pretty good neural engine here, and yeah, 16-core CPU, 40-core graphics. I mean, this thing is a beast. I had an M2 Mac Studio, and I couldn't make it stutter if I tried. So I can't even imagine what this thing would be like. It would be amazing. But then has the M3 Ultra as the higher chip, which that's where the weirdness comes in. Hello, Rants About Tech. We're talking about the new Apple Mac releases here. Nice to see you. All right. Yeah, 8 GB of RAM is definitely concerning. Many people like my life would be fine with the 8 GB of RAM. She only does the basics. Yeah, and that's actually what the MacBook M2 MacBook I have, the MacBook Air, is 8 GB of RAM for my wife, and it's fine for everything that she does. It's just when I start to recommend things for longevity, because I don't want to recommend a MacBook to someone that they can only have for like 1 year. That's just quite a shame to me. But hey, if it works, it works, and there's nothing wrong with an M2 or even an M1 MacBook Air. Those things are still great machines, especially for casual use. But yeah, anyone who does like video editing, Garrett should be able to attest to that here. Uh, when you do big projects and stuff, having a max chip can even get slowed down from some of that stuff, and especially in M1. So yeah, it's interesting. You can definitely slow down these chips still. Yeah, M3 Ultra is weird. I wonder if they are ditching the Ultra line. I don't know. I kind of don't think so. A lot of people thought they were ditching, uh, doing the dual die system where they interlink two dies together using Ultra Fusion or whatever they called it, to make the Ultra chip. Because when the M3 Max came out, there was not a attachment for that anymore, where the M1 and the M2 both had that. But they did it. They literally used the M3 Max chips and put two together and created an Ultra. That is what this is. So clearly they, even if the chips that they're shipping in some of the MacBooks don't show that, they're still doing it. So I don't know. It's interesting. Some people think they're going to save the M4 Ultra for the Mac Pro coming out later, so that it has a reason to get the Mac Pro over the Mac Studio. Because right now, the Mac Studio is just the better buy. Um, Unless you really want the cheese grater look and this giant box that is almost empty because of Apple Silicon taking up so little space. Um, So yeah, my M1 Max is being murdered by DaVinci Resolve Fusion. Yeah, yeah, there is definitely, uh, there's definitely a limit to the unified memory that Apple offers. I mean, it is better than regular RAM because it can also be VRAM and stuff like that. It's a cool system that they have, but there is a limit to 8 gigabytes, especially, and there's a limit to 16 gigabytes, and there's a limit to 32 gigabytes. I don't know what your M1 Max goes up to. I forget where they are, if it's like 32 or 64 or something like that. But even that has a limit. They have upped the limit of what memory can go to on the Max chip, which I think is really good. They can go up to 128 now, and with better graphics and everything. I think for most people in the professional world, you're not going to need higher than a Max chip. And I like that it's the latest generation, the M4. So that's an easy recommendation for me. You can get this baseline chip here for 2000, which sounds like a lot, but for a Mac Studio with an M4 Max already, it's really not that bad. Um, no, the Air was not a redesign, unfortunately. They added like a few things to it, and they lowered the price. So they gave it this new color. So if you count a color as a redesign, then sure they have that. But no, it's still the same one as the M2 and M3 Air. They just dropped the price of the 13-inch and 15-inch down $100, and it does have some nice things, like it's got the center stage camera now, and it's got the two external monitors that I can connect to versus just one or two. If you shut the MacBook, it can now fully do two. But yeah, other than that, yeah, it honestly, for what I think we do, having a MacBook Air is not super practical for the most part. I mean, the Pro is just gonna handle things usually better. Also, just having built-in fans helps things if you ever do start to push your MacBook a bit more. But yeah, I do think this M4 MacBook Air could probably handle most of the video editing that I do. I don't do things super complicated. I don't know what program you use, Rant About Tech, but most of the stuff I use, it's not super hard on. It worked on my iPad Pro for the most part, but yeah, I still probably won't go back to primarily editing on my iPad Pro. Yeah, there are things like thermal pads. That's a good point, that you can use that, and desk fans and stuff like that. Uh, uh, but yeah, so they're interesting devices here. Yeah, I think that both of these Macs were more exciting than the iPad that they released earlier. I honestly that kind of just tracks too for a lot of stuff Apple's been doing. Like the iPad Mini they released last year, it's like, ooh, they gave it a new chip, and that's what you get. I still got it though, so I guess I fell for the trap. But it really wasn't much of an upgrade, and they also uh, then released the M4 Mac Mini, and that was a great new Mac. And they released the M4 MacBook Pros, and those were great Macs. So those kind of things were much better of an upgrade. Still not quite as compelling as a full redesign or anything like that, but they were still decent upgrades where the iPad upgrades lately have just been very, very low effort, uh, just chip swaps. So, yeah, the M4 iPad Pro is basically the last iPad that's gotten an actual redesign, and even its redesign isn't that much different. So, yeah, that's kind of the state of things. So, does anyone have any other questions relating to the Apple releases this week? To use Power Director. I actually don't know of that video editor very much. Uh, that'll be interesting to check out. Normal iPad or iPad Air are binned old stock. They use new color Mac. Yeah, they they are they use a lot of binned chips, and yeah, they didn't even give the iPads actually new colors for the most part. I think the Mini did get a new color, but that's about it. Or I think they just tweaked the shades of the colors, but yeah, the iPads are not blowing me away right now. The nice thing is, with the Pros, you definitely get better chips. You don't get a lot of chip binning on the iPad Pros. So as you can see here, so with the M4, you get the full 10 core. Well, if you get over a terabyte of storage or a terabyte of storage, and then you get 10 core GPU, where no matter what storage size you get on the iPad Air, you're getting a binned 8 core CPU and a 9 core GPU. So it's a bit of a shame, and obviously the baseline iPad has much less cores there, but they all have that 16 core neural engine. So, there's that. Uh, oh, it's garbage. Okay, well, I guess I won't really look into it much. But yeah, I know it's hard to switch away from the video editor you use. It's once you get into it, you're kind of just stuck there, and you have a rhythm that you work with, and it is what it is. But yeah, I've been using Final Cut Pro for the most part, but I also have used DaVinci Resolve, and there's benefits and drawbacks to both of them. I actually edited all my videos on a completely different channel on DaVinci Resolve. Channel is not related to tech at all, but all those videos were made on DaVinci Resolve. Yes, Nothing phone. So that is another thing I wanted to go over quick. So here is the Nothing 3A Pro. And this just came to my attention mostly for the fact of like Apple just released their iPhone 16e, which is their budget phone for $600 that has one camera and a 60 hertz display and like all this stuff. But this one is a budget phone, a real budget phone for $460. This is their Pro variant. The non-Pro one is even cheaper, with 12 gigabytes of RAM, more RAM than any iPhone has, and 256 gigabytes of storage, double the storage of all the regular iPhone's starting storage. The Pros now start at 256 as well, but the regular ones didn't. So, yeah, that is kind of nuts. So this thing got the glyphs that Nothing is known for, that can give you like certain notification signals and stuff like that, and a pretty impressive set of specs here. So this pro camera system, the ultra wide is definitely its weakest point. It's got only 8 megapixels there, but both the larger cameras are 50 megapixel shake free on the main camera, so that means it actually has optical image stabilization, which if you saw Jerry Rig Everything's video, he tore that apart and showed that it does have OIS. And then the sensor here has internal OIS, I believe. And yeah, this is the big periscope zoom sensor, and they have it kind of cutting into the camera bump. This is a style that not everyone's going to like. Personally, I think it looks really interesting. I like the look of it. I've always liked the look of Nothing's phones, but that transparent kind of raw aesthetic is not going to be for everyone. But yeah, you can get up to 60 times zoom. I've seen some people compare it to the S25 Ultra Zoom, and the S25 is still better, but it's really, really good for a $460 phone. It's just crazy what they can do. 50 megapixels on the front camera as well. It's great. They gave it a Snapdragon chip, not the latest and greatest Snapdragon chip, because again, you're going budget here, but a chip that will do basically everything you need it to do. Their OS is phenomenal. I've always loved Nothing OS. 300 nits of brightness is crazy bright. A 6.7 inch screen, 120 hertz. I mean, that's flagship level screen right there. And really, really competitive pricing. So this one only comes in 2 colors, like this silverish one, and then the darker black almost one there. But yeah, I like it. It looks good. I would like to, again, this is one of the ones that I might try to get my hands on, especially because it's a little bit cheaper here, but we shall see. Can you check Moto Edge 40 5G phone? Should I upgrade or not? Yeah, we can look into that in just a moment here. I'm just gonna finish up with the Nothing phones, and then we can definitely take a look at something else. So yeah, this is the phone 3A Pro, and the phone 3A is very, very similar. It just has a different camera bump here. So yeah, everything else is basically the same design. It's only a 32 megapixel front camera, so a little bit worse on the front camera as well. The main telephoto, it is still 50 megapixels, I believe. The main camera is 50 megapixels as well, so those are still the higher resolution. Same 8 megapixel ultra wide though. And basically the telephoto is just a regular telephoto, not a periscope zoom, so it's not going crazy zoom length, so it can do up to 30 times, which is still not bad at all. But yeah, it's just a little bit worse on the camera department. But everything else is the same specs because it's literally the same base phone. They're just changing out the cameras. So yeah, I think these are really, really incredible budget phones. Under 400 for this one. I like this blue that it can come into. It looks really nice. So yeah, I love it. I would find, if you're looking for a budget phone, look no further. I think this is the one to get. But yeah, we can look into, you said it was the Moto Edge 40 5G. Yeah, we can start to look into that. Let's just give it a look right now. I haven't seen too much about this yet. Is this the 45G? Doesn't really say, does it? It just says it's the Edge. Alright. Yeah, so this is, so it comes with 256 gigabytes, which again, nice. 8 gigabytes of RAM of memory. 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So yeah, these newer, cheaper phones, I mean, they're looking good. $300. Yeah, that's not bad. I believe this is the exact chip that the Nothing phone comes with as well. So the 7S Gen 2, which it is a fine phone chip. It is not going to be like top of the line, but it is going to do very well. Um, yeah, I don't see anything here that's like blowing me out of the water. That's like, oh, you gotta upgrade to this. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a very fine upgrade. It looks like I have no problem with where they're pricing this phone at and like what they're giving you for this price. I think this is really good. Uh, yeah, I like it. I've I personally am a bit more of a fan of the flatter edge on a screen display, like the S25 Ultra has, or even the iPhone and stuff like that. So, I think I just find it annoying almost to accidentally hit part of my screen when it's curving over the edge there, and it doesn't add any coolness for me. But if it's a style you like, I mean, I think this is a good phone for the price. But I can look more in depth on it if you're wanting, and maybe have some research for you next live stream next week. But yeah, off the top of my head, looks pretty good. They have it at a nice discount right now for only 300, at least in the U.S. I have no idea what it's priced elsewhere, but yeah, I think that is pretty great. You got Blackmagic Cam running on it, unofficial. Okay, so there was like a workaround there. Uh, you really want Subway right now. I don't really see how that's relevant to uh, this tech video. Okay, we're gonna move on from that, but yeah. So you got the Blackmagic camera working on this. That's really cool. I think that definitely offers some pro features. The Samsung camera app uh, uh, has a really good pro system on it. Like you can activate the pro video mode and fine tune all the settings. I kind of wish that's what Apple did on their camera app, and they just added a pro mode, but instead they made a whole nother app, like the Final Cut camera app, with gets all like the pro settings and stuff. And the app needs work. And for being a first party camera app, I feel like it's not as fluid as Apple's first party camera app. So that's a little disappointing to me, but hey, it is what it is, and I can't. At least they gave us a pro camera app that's official and whatever, but yeah, that's really cool that you got Blackmagic camera working. I was using that when I was using DaVinci Resolve a lot. I would have the Blackmagic camera app because it's also made by Blackmagic, so it just worked together even better. And then now that I switched to Final Cut camera is more what I use just because they talk to each other more. So I guess we're just getting hungry in the chat now. Are we going too much into lunchtime? Is that what's happening here? Because it seems like lunch is on people's mind now. Is that my signal to end the live stream? I think it might be. Uh, but yeah, so we're gonna wrap up pretty much right now then. But yeah, budget phone. I still think Nothing looks like one of the best ones out there. That Moto 5G was looking really good as well. I have some experience with the Blackmagic camera app. I think it works really well. Uh, uh, can check Xiaomi concept phone. I will definitely be looking into some of the Xiaomi phones, and I can talk about that in the next live stream. Uh, yeah, it's Xiaomi has some really interesting stuff. I don't really like Xiaomi as a company. I just think uh, they scare me a little bit with. I mean, the fact that the U.S. kicked them out is kind of a big giveaway of like, should I even ever trust this company? Because the U.S. still allows a lot of things in the country that steal your data and do stuff like that. But apparently, this one Xiaomi did it enough where they kicked it out. It's also because it was China, and the U.S. doesn't like China. But that's a whole other thing. But yeah, they have some really interesting hardware and concept phones. I've never been a huge fan of their software and some of that stuff that they have, but the phones they make are something. Really, really impressive. And we can talk more about that in the next live stream for sure. Food and tech and food, my favorite topics. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking too. And now I'm getting hungry. So we're going to end here. But thank you everyone for commenting. And yeah, like it's been fun talking to you guys, talking about this stuff. India blocked TikTok. Oh, I didn't know India did that. That was interesting. I know America did that for a little bit, at least from the App Store and the Google Play Store. But yeah. So we'll talk way more about Xiaomi, all sorts of other stuff in the next live stream. Plenty of tech news, I'm sure. I didn't expect Apple to have so much stuff coming out this week, so that kept me busy. But yeah, also, I didn't really talk about this much, but iOS 18.4 Beta 2 came out today, and that was interesting because it adds like the one feature to the action button and control center that made the camera control button kind of fun for me. So what I mean by that is now in the settings, you can have visual intelligence as the action button. So when I press and hold my action button here, I get visual intelligence. So that's cool, which means they brought it to the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max as well. But yeah, that's the one main little thing I wanted to say about iOS 18.4. Mostly it's been a disappointment. They still have none of the cool Siri changes and whatever they're supposed to have, but that's nice to have, and then they're bringing that down the line a little bit. I like that. But now the camera control button feels pretty useless. All right. So that's all I'm going to say for you now, guys. Have a great rest of your day. And I should probably have another video coming out today or tomorrow, so give that a watch. And yeah, the iPhone does have a pause button in the camera now. That was something they changed in iOS 18. But yeah, when you're recording, you can pause it and then resume it. Yep.